We're on. Hey, Helen. Helen's the first one. She may get a prize. Awesome. Hey, everybody.
Oh, you're so fine.
Hey, Chris. Hey, my mom joined. Hi.
Ah, that's very sweet.
Hey, Kim. So we're going to cruise for a few minutes while everyone is doing their thing. Hey. We're reconnected. Excellent. Okay. And yeah. Here, I'm going to show you some of the mutes from above. Whoa. Super exciting. So, as you can see, there's tons of mutes. I'll wait for a few more people, I think. A lot of mutes, lots to get through. I'm also going to play a few different trumpets to show off those mutes. I'll be sure playing my C trumpet. Is that a Tom Crown pick mute? No, it's not. I have a Tom Crown pick mute actually over there, but I'm only going to demonstrate one pick mute. It's actually a Trum Corps pick mute. Actually, here, I'll grab my Tom Crown and I'll show you. The Tom Crown pick mute was the very first one I got. It looks a little different. I find the Trum Corps pick mute to be a little easier to play, and I love the vibrancy of it more so than the Tom Crown pick mute. All right, I think I'm going to start. Hey, Alan, how's it going? Cool. Sweet. All right. All right. Aloha, everybody. Thanks so much. Great to see you too, Alan. Great to see all of you. Thanks so much for showing up for, oh, we needed mutes for this? Yeah, because that's the story of my life. I am frequently slightly panicked that I don't have the right mutes a lot of the times, especially on pop shows. I'm always like, what mutes do I need? So I'm going to address the mute situation right now. So first things first, I'm going to tell you all the mutes I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to be talking about the straight mute. I'll be talking about the cup mute, straight mute, cup mute, soft straight mute, bucket mute, harmon mute, practice mute, everyone's favorite, the plunger, and the felt crown, also known as a crown royal bag.
Ooh.
That'll be demonstrated as well. So, I'm going to hop in on the straight mute. Hey, Leo. Okay, so the most popular mute that trumpet players, trombone players, and tuba players play is the straight mute. So, there are never a shortage of straight mutes to get. There are many brands of straight mutes. There are many varieties of straight mutes as far as what they're made of, and they all kind of give off different sound qualities. And you're going to use a lot of different ones depending on your needs. So, just for starters, these mutes kind of all look the same. They are all Joe Rao straight mutes. I have one in straight aluminum, I have one with a brass bottom, and I have one with a copper bottom. And they all kind of sound a little differently. What I like about the Joe Rao straight mute is that it's a pretty middle of the road mute for me. So if I'm going somewhere, let's say I'm going on a gig, and I'm not necessarily sure what I'm going to encounter, I may just bring the Joe Rao straight mute just because it's middle of the road for me. I'm going to show you what all three of them sound like on a little fanfare from Einheldenleben. So first up is the straight aluminum. Straight aluminum. One thing I failed to mention is straight mutes have a tendency, certain brands have a tendency to play a little sharper than others. So before you take your straight mute out, you should see what your tendencies are on the straight mute. Very frequently, I have to pull out just a little bit to play a straight mute. So keep that in mind. The other thing that I like about a Joe Rao straight mute for me is that I don't have to pull out significantly to make it work. I'll play that one again. Here's a brass bottom. What I like about this is if I'm playing in a slightly larger hall, because of the heavier weight on the brass bottom, I can kind of lay into the mute a little bit more, and it gives me some more overtones, and it's pretty cool. Here's the copper bottom. So still, I can lay into it just a little bit more, and it does give off different type of overtones than, say, the brass bottom. Now, I'm going to shuffle on over to the drum corps straight mutes. So in this also, I have a straight aluminum. I also have an aluminum with a brass bottom. For me, I tend to like the brass bottom on this one, but it is kind of a loud mute, so I don't tend to use it a lot. It depends on the situation. But something like this, something like maybe Opening of Pines of Rome, I may use this mute. And I play a little higher on this one too. Brass bottom. So it's a very interesting sounding mute. Laura Miller, do you ever have a performance where you use multiple kinds of straight mutes on the same concert, or do you choose one that fits all the music for that concert? No, I may actually use more than one straight mute on a concert depending on my needs and the needs of the piece. So, with that in mind, where would I do that?
Birds. You use all those different mutes for birds?
Oh, yeah. We play a piece in the Hawaii Symphony that we do for education services called the Hawaiian Birds. And it's really, really cool. But we do tend to use different straight mutes for different movements depending on the bird that needs to be kind of, exemplified. The straight mute that my colleague and I, Zach Silberschlag, tend to use in the Hawaii Symphony is the AMR straight mute. Fortunately, I don't have it on me right now because it's sitting in Honolulu, but it's a really cool sounding mute. So it is a light wood fiber mute that can play loud without getting a buzzy sound, and it can kind of play soft too without really compromising the sound color. It's really great. It plays really well in tune, and it kind of looks like little spirals. So it's a light wood color. It's really neat. If I was playing Opening of Pines of Rome, I might use the Dennis Wick straight mute. What is the quickest mute change you have ever had to do? Quickest mute change I've ever had to do? I don't know. they come up a lot, honestly, and when that's the case, you're going to be holding a mute like this or doing something like this. You're never going to be jamming. If the mute has to come out very fast, you're actually going to be holding it and not making sure that the corks have made very strong contact in the bill. So I would tend to hold it and not hold it with my whole hand, because that's going to change the color of the mute significantly. I would hold the mute like this and then pull out like that. Frequently too, a lot of people use a mute stand on their stand. That's very, very common in Broadway shows. When I used to sub a lot of Broadway shows in New York City, the trumpet player that I would be subbing for always had a mute stand, because those changes are quite quick. Another thing that I tend to do in the orchestra, I tend to sit with the mute in my lap, and then I can pull it really fast. I've seen some people do something like this. I feel less comfortable with that one, but it does happen. So, if you want to hear a really great buzzy sounding mute, I think about 5 seasons ago in Hawaii Symphony, we played Pines of Rome, and we played, we actually used, which I'll show you, a Tom Crown Gemini mute, which is a really great all-around sounding mute. So I'll demonstrate that and the Dennis Wick on the opening of Pines of Rome. So that's with the Dennis Wick. It's very, very buzzy, and it's really, I really like it for that. Another thing about a Dennis Wick for me, I may have mentioned it already, I tend to play pretty high on Dennis Wick, so I have to pull out for sure. Here's the Tom Crown. And we definitely used the Tom Crown a couple of years ago on this. Little less buzzy, really nice strong sound. Another mute that I can show you is the Marcus Bona fiberglass mute. This is a really great mute. Tends to play very well in tune, not too sharp, and has a clearer tone, but can play pretty loud. It can also play pretty soft, sort of, with a nice sort of tone that kind of sticks. That's a pretty nice mute too. Obviously, there are no shortage of really nice mutes. So, there are other straight mutes that are soft straight mutes. I have 3 different soft straight mutes. I have the Trum Core Lyric, which is very, very popular soft mute. I also have the Bach Plastic Mute, which is also pretty popular, maybe not as popular as the Trum Core Lyric. And I have an Ion Baloo, which is actually, Ion Baloo is very popular maker for French horn mutes. This is a very pretty mute. Unfortunately, a lot of trumpet players maybe don't play it. They should, because it's really, really nice. But I'll show you an instance where I would use this. Here, I'm going to show you what it sounds like to use a soft mute on something loud. And you can hear how it may not give the most appropriate color. So here's a little bit of the opening of Pines of Rome on a soft mute. So there's a lot of resistance to kind of hold the sound in. So, you know, if you're playing opening of Pines of Rome, you're playing fanfares in Ein Heldenleben, you definitely wouldn't want to use the Trum Core Lyric. Where you would want to use the Trum Core Lyric is in the Shostakovich Piano Concerto. The second movement has a really, really pretty trumpet solo. And that is a really great spot for the soft mute. Okay. One warning about the Trum Core, at least for me, I tend to play a little sharp on that. So that's a spot where I would pull my tuning slide out to compensate for that. as you can hear, it sounds really nice. So I'm going to play the same thing now on the Bach plastic mute. I used to have a friend that was really into the Bach plastic mute. In fact, he had so many varieties, and what he would do with some of them is he would actually shove cotton balls in it to sort of absorb some more sound, and it changed it, and it was really, really quite nice. Mine does not have cotton balls in it. Also a nice sounding mute. Now I'll show you the ion balloon. Very soft, pretty mute, for sure. Now, I'm going to show you the little straight mute, and that is for the piccolo trumpet. So, there are a few spots in the orchestral literature where you do need a straight mute. One of which is the Samuel Goldenberg Spiel from Mussorgsky's Pictures and Exhibition. In the Ravel arrangement of it, you would it's an argument between two people that are kind of whining at each other, and the piccolo trumpet with the mute tends to really bring that out. So it goes on and on like that. And that's the piccolo straight mute. Another mute that they actually do make for the piccolo trumpet, they do make practice mutes, and they also make Harmon mutes. I one time saw the late Lou Soloff at, he was playing a Brandenburg concerto randomly in New York City, and I went to go, talk to him and be like, hi, I play trumpet, and he showed me he was warming up on his piccolo trumpet with his Harmon mute in. So it was pretty cool, but I don't have a Harmon mute for my piccolo trumpet. Alright, so that's the world of the straight mute. Up next, I'm going to show you the cup mute. So the cup mute is very, very popular in jazz music, some classical things, very, very common on Broadway shows and musicals, things like that. So, these two cup mutes are actually the most common ones. This is the Stone line, which is kind of like the original cup mute, and this is a Dennis Wick cup mute. The thing that's really neat about the Dennis Wick is that the cup is adjustable. So I have it in right now, and I'm going to show you a pretty popular cup mute section from the Artunian Trumpet Concerto, and I'll just show you what they sound like. So that's with the cup in. If I take the cup out, like that, it'll sound a little bit different. Slightly different. Now, this is the Stone line mute.
That's classy.
Very classic.
Yeah,
It's a very classy old school sound. Now, to get even more old school, Stoneline makes the mica mute. So the mica mute was used in, I think, like the 30s and the 40s, when a trumpet player would stand up in front of a big band and play a solo. And it would give it this velvety sort of sound. And there's sort of like, maybe you could sort of see it, there's like a red felt in there. And it just sort of absorbs a little bit more of the sound. It's a really nice mute. This is a very pretty sound. Now, there are plenty of other companies that actually do make different cup mutes also. One other cup mute that I have that's maybe from a little, maybe not as popular brand, is actually made by Dennis Najum, who played for many, many years in the Milwaukee Symphony. And this is also an adjustable cup. The thing that's really cool, I got the one that has copper on it. It's kind of heavy, but it really gives off a very, very pretty sound. So it's also pretty nice. Okay. Up next, I'm going to talk about the Harmon mute. The Harmon mute is pretty popular. This is a Harmon mute. And this is Joe Ral's version of it, which is called the bubble mute. Bubble mute is kind of heavy. As you can also see too, there's a lot of dents in these mutes. They have a tendency to fall out of the bell if there isn't enough moisture for the mute to kind of sit in the bell. So, how we rectify that, literally fog it up like you're fogging up a mirror so that you can get your mute to kind of stay. One thing that's very, very common when we are playing with Harmon mute is sometimes we have to do this wah, wah, wah thing. In the orchestra, we tend to use the Harmon mute on pop shows, rock shows, that sort of thing. One very famous trumpet solo, though, is from Rhapsody in Blue, the piano solo. I'm going to show you what it's like without the wah-wah first, just the sound of it with the stem in. Then I'll show you what the wah-wah sounds like. Wrong trumpet! Sorry. Okay. Take two. So that is what that sounds like. Now we have the wah 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 bit. Pardon my wah wah technique. Because of my arm, I was not blessed with very long arms. My wah wah is a little hard for me because it's very hard for my arm to reach to the end. So, that's what that's all about. Now, another thing that's very, very common when you're dealing with the Harmon mute is the stem. And in the music, it'll say stem in or stem out. So, I'll play this little thing with the stem out on this St. Louis Blues. Wrong trumpet. Again. Now, I'm going to show you what it sounds like with the wah wah wah. So that's what that's all about with the Harmon. Okay. Up next, we've got the felt crown. So, I have on me 2 different felt crowns. Okay. I've got literally a hat that I bought that I cut the whole brim around, and this is the middle of the hat, because that's what they did back in the day, in like the 30s and the 40s. They literally put a hat on the end of their bell. So, and then I made a slit like this, cut a slit, so that you could hang it on the bell just like that. Now, one very, very famous solo that we get to play in the orchestra is in American in Paris. That's a good old felt crown. Now, for a new version felt crown, which is very, very popular, is to literally go to a liquor store and buy Crown Royal whiskey. If you're under the age of 21, get your parents to buy it for you. So, just so that you can get the bag. You don't have to drink the whole bottle to get the bag. Just FYI. I mean, you could, but you really don't have to. So now, you can take your felt bag and you can put it on the trumpet, just like that. And you can experiment with it being all the way on, slightly hanging more. I tend to like it very, very hanging. So... So, slightly different, but, you know, you go with what you think it should be. So, those are my 2 felt crown options. Oh, another mute I forgot to mention is the bucket mute. The bucket mute is typically used in jazz and big band charts. As a classical player, I haven't had a lot of use for the bucket mute. I actually used it maybe last June. I was playing an opera with New York City Opera, and it was a world premiere, and we actually had a call for these. So it's sort of like a bit more, you know, maybe a darker sound, muffled than a cup mute. So I'm just going to play the St. Louis Blues with this sort of tone quality so that you can hear that. As you can hear it, you may also want to use it in stuff that's like a little, you know, maybe calls for a flugelhorn or that type of thing, but maybe you don't have one. You know, you never know. Another thing that's...
Hey, that mute is used in Fiddler on the Roof, big solo.
Ah.
It's a big thing.
Apparently it's used in Fiddler on the Roof, so I've been told. So, another thing that tends to happen too when you're playing trombone or you're playing trumpet, sometimes it'll say, "Hey Rudy," "Hey Randy," it'll say "in stand." So in stand literally means you're going to kind of play into the stand and then out of the stand. So in stand would sound like this. It sounds a little muffled, but not quite the color of like changing to a mute. Then when you go out of stand, sounds a little brighter. Takes more of the brightness of the trumpet back into the sound. Okay, so what do we have up next? Oh, everyone's fave, the plunger. Plungers come in a couple of different sizes. There's the toilet plunger and there's the hand plunger. I tend to use a hand plunger. I guess it's a sink plunger. I tend to use the sink plunger for when I'm playing trumpet. Unfortunately, my sink plunger is sitting in Honolulu at the moment, so I can't use it. But I have this slightly larger plunger, and I'm going to play a very, very famous solo that you'll know without me even saying anything. From Chicago, all the way. So, is there an orchestral equivalent of horns to the box, like in marching band? The box.
Like the press box?
Randy, what do you mean about the box? Like going up with your bell to like a press box if you're in like a marching band, or equivalent of horns to the box, like in marching band? Well, I guess if you're a horn, typically you might be playing, okay, cool. You most likely would be playing mellophone. So a mellophone kind of looks like a big fat trumpet, and it's kind of heavy, and you would be facing forward. Does that happen in orchestra? The only thing I can think of for horns in orchestra might be just a bells up. You know, obviously like Mahler, bells up, that type of thing. Because we get a bells up too in Mahler also. Other than in that, Candide. Alright, so I guess maybe the horns have it at the end of Candide. I know trumpets, I don't think we have it at the end of Candide, but that's cool. Thanks for chiming in on that. But, yeah, with the horns up. Okay, so that's the plan. That effect is also a growl. So I'm literally growling from the back of my throat to get that sort of like, that sort of thing going. If I don't growl, here's what your plunger would sound like. String player with the growl. Makes a way cooler sort of effect. Okay, so up next, one of the last mutes I can demonstrate for you is the practice mute. So I'm going to show you 3 different ones, and I'm literally going to play something that I might practice. Like, I'm always traveling with a practice mute because you never know, like, if you're in an airport and you kind of get some delay and you got to kill time, you know, you might as well warm up, might as well do some technical exercises, you know, and you don't necessarily need to find a spot that's, like, secluded because no one can really hear you when you've got one. So, here's the schmute, which is a very, very popular mute. Very, very quiet. Very, very light. And here, I'm just going to play some Clark Studies, which is a very popular study for trumpet players. Hey! Danielle, how are you? Cool. So that's the schmute. Up next, this is the Dennis Wick practice mute. Sounds a little different. I could also think of a brass quintet piece by Anthony Plogue called 4 Sketches, where you actually do use, I've used this mute like in performance, just because that was the effect that it needed for mute. So that's what this is. So, last practice mute I can show you is the Yamaha Silent Brass. So, this is the mute, this is the plug. And what happens is you plug it into the end of your mute, like that. And then in this pack, you put your headphones in, and then you can listen to yourself play. And it's super cool because you can actually hear the trumpet and not just, very, very muted practice mute sound. And you can you can put yourself in a concert hall, you can put yourself in a rehearsal room, you can add reverb, you can not add reverb. It's really neat. Or if you don't have your pack or your batteries die, you can use the mute. And the thing that's cool is that it's flush. So then, so that is the practice mute. Well, there's lots and lots of chat. That's pretty much all I have to say about mutes. Does anybody have any questions about mutes? Not so much. So, just the mutes, your intonation. Which practice mute do you like the best? I actually like the Yamaha Silent Brass the best. I feel like the pitch, for me, is the best. As far as sometimes practice mutes have a tendency to play really sharp in the low register and kind of flat in the upper register. For me, the Yamaha Silent Brass, it works really, really well. My Schmute used to work really, really well until my cork disintegrated over time, and I had to get it recorked. Since I've got it recorked, it's like really not great anymore. There's intonation problems. Have you used the Whisper Mute by Bremer for Plogue? I have not, actually. I've only used... Can't see why the Schmute wouldn't be good for the Plogue. I mean, yeah, as long as you and the other trumpet player have it and everyone in the group kind of agrees that they like that sound, then go for it, for sure. But yeah, the biggest things with mute... a mute is really just an extension of the sound of the trumpet. So when you get a new mute, before you take it out and play it in public, you should literally sit down with your mute and a tuner, and you should make sure that you're playing in the center of the instrument with your mute. It's super duper important, and you'll be a way better colleague once you go to work with your new mute. I won't play a certain mute if I feel like I can't get in the center of the sound. Do you ever use one of those Crown Royal blue velvet bags? I do.
I gave you.
Would that be like a hat mute? Yeah, it totally would. Here, wait, Rudy. I got one right here. I could show you. I think it's a Chavis Regal bag. Loot. But yeah, I've got one of these too. I don't use this bag that often. Ed, my husband, tends to like this bag.
Can I say something?
It's really, really velvet. Oh yeah, Travis Regal. Yeah.
So in the band, I don't know if anybody's interested in this, but in the band, I use those. I would rather give a high schooler that than a flugelhorn because they usually can't control the pitch on flugelhorn.
Interesting.
Particularly if it goes above high F. It's really bad, so the bag is best.
Actually, my husband is sitting in the room, and he's a high school band director, and he has a tendency that he would rather give a high school kid one of those bags when it calls for flugelhorn because the kid can't potentially, maybe isn't strong enough to control the pitch on the flugelhorn. Actually, on those lines, what mute do you use for Gershwin? Dan, I actually really like just the Crown Royal. I also I showed everyone my felt crown that I made myself. Actually here, because y'all are asking slightly, I'll just play a little lick. How do you explain where the bag came from? It came from the liquor store, Randy. And if you are under the age of 21, have your parents go to the liquor store to buy Crown Royal. You do not have to drink the bottle of Crown Royal to get the bag. You just have to get the bag, and the Crown Royal could sit on the shelf. It really could. But here, because you guys are all asking, I'll play a little of American in Paris again. I'll use all three bags. Well, some people can, Rudy, can drink the whole bottle, but, you know, for those of you you should not be drinking the whole bottle. You can also buy the bag itself from the website. For real, Dan? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we drink a lot.
So, yeah, here's a little... So that's with my felt crown that I made myself. Here's again with the Crown Royal. Donate that can't buy it for themselves. Now that's a fantastic idea. If you really want to do that, you can. What do you use for fets? I tend to use the Trum Core Lyric for fets. For me, the Chavis Regal for American in Paris just feels a little too muffled from having to play it from the back of the stage, which is why I wouldn't play it, but it is a very pretty sound. And yes, everyone want to drink your Canadian whiskey.
It's wasted on them.
All right. Any other questions from Mute? I think we're cool. Say about Mutes is good. With you can really get up. Thanks a lot to HSO. It was super fun, and Hawaii HSO Music to getting back on stage. If anyone has any questions or anything, you can follow me on Instagram, or you can find me on Facebook. I'm very, very happy to chat trumpet whenever, because we're chilling for the time being. So, yeah, aloha everybody, and have a good rest of your day.